very much, Professor Al-Adlan. It was really a great presentation highlighting the role of IRB and ethical issues. Thank you very much. Now, for our follow-up talk with Professor Waleed Alhazzani. Unfortunately, proposals, a guide to navigate the grant application process and secure funding.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. It's a great pleasure to speak at this research day. Although, unfortunately, I wasn't able to join you in person for health reasons. I was able to record my presentation. And at the end of this presentation, you'll find my contact. So if there are any residual questions or concerns or comments, please feel free to reach out. These are my disclosures. I'm a CHR, ESI, NIH-funded researchers, also have been funded by RDIA, so I could share some of my experience with you today. Obviously, the objective is not to make you an expert in grant writing. In fact, I think today we cover some principles and tips and pitfalls that could help you in learning about writing grant or competitive grant proposals. That would be a great accomplishment. I only have 20 minutes, so we don't have much time. So why grants matter? First, grants supporting research advances medical research and innovation. It provides the essential funding needed to complete these innovative projects. You could imagine without funding opportunities, groundbreaking discoveries and advancement in healthcare will not be possible at all. Again, grants allow us to tackle national health priorities. It enables researchers, specifically in Saudi Arabia, for example, targeting researchers for metabolic syndrome, including diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and obesity, and advancing public health initiatives. It's also part of the Saudi Vision 2030. It's to prioritize human health and advance healthcare innovation and research. So medical grants play a key or a pivotal role in transforming healthcare systems and positioning Saudi Arabia, inshallah, as a global leader in medicine and healthcare. But it's also for researchers, it's crucial. It empowers researchers, junior, mid-career, senior researchers, allow them to build their career, allow them to access advanced resources and develop their skills and publish in high-impact journals. There are tons of opportunities in Saudi Arabia. In fact, there is a growing support for the research enterprise and research and development and innovation in general. It's expected by 2040 that the government will spend 115 billion Saudi riyal in RDI. And by 2040, the goal is to train or employ more than 140,000 researchers in different disciplines. This is not specific for medicine, but also to capitalize on these research initiatives and increase the GDP contribution to 230 billion Saudi riyals by 2050. So it's an investment by our country that we should all capitalize on and try to be part of this ambitious dream. There are plenty of funding institutional programs, including initially taxed RDIA, Saudi NIH, but also universities, and not even including industry and pharmaceuticals as well, which is also a big contributor to the ecosystem. When it comes to research areas, you could look them up, but there are certain areas that it's the focus of the world, but also in Saudi Arabia, including non-communicable diseases, preventable diseases, infectious diseases, and public health. But also advancing technology, especially with the era of artificial intelligence and more precision medicine and clinical trials, of course, and pharmaceutical development. So there is plenty of areas to cover that have strategic importance. So before we start diving into writing a competitive grant, what is a grant proposal? It's a structured document that aims to request financial support for a specific research initiative. So think about it as a sales pitch. You're a salesman or a saleswoman who's trying to sell your idea to reviewers and the funding agency so they can support your research. But it's more than just a document. It's a strategic document to communicate the importance, relevance, and the feasibility of your project. But before you dive in, you need to understand funding agencies and their priorities, because this is absolutely crucial. And the reason is funders will support projects that align with their mission and goals. So if you approach a funding agency that is aiming to support research on dementia, and you want to fund your research in the ICU, for example, then probably you will not be successful at all. And proposals that do not address funders' priorities are often rejected immediately, doesn't even make it to peer review. This is why it's crucial to know the areas and the landscape of funding agencies, but how to identify these funding priorities. And now you could research the funders, you can review their website, the mission statement, past funded project. You can look at annual reports and strategic plans. This will give you an idea about which projects usually get funded by these agencies. You can examine the call for proposals as well. You look carefully at the guidelines. Don't just listen to colleagues, you have to read them yourself. Highlight the keywords and the themes that they emphasize. Also, another way is to engage with funders, attend webinars, Q&As, workshops hosted by funders that provide enormous important information. If you can't, at least one of your research team members should attend them. And we can reach out always with questions to clarify the expectations. Okay, so the grant writing process is divided, or we could call it the research grant life cycle. It starts with an idea. So you develop the idea, it has to be clear and has specific criteria that we're going to go through. And second is the proposal writing, and then followed by submission and review by the funding agency. And hopefully you get awarded, and there's a post-award management. So really it's a simplified figure for the grant life cycle, but it's really in real life, it's more than a simple just figure. To develop a fundable research idea, you absolutely need to cover these 4 items. Your research idea needs to be relevant to the funders, relevant to the community or the context that you're practicing in. It has to be feasible. The idea could be relevant, but really not feasible to be done, either due to high cost or very ambitious goals or lack of ways to do the research. But also it has to show an impact. It could be relevant, feasible, but the impact of the research is low. Therefore, it's not going to get funded. And if you add on top of all of that a piece of innovation, novel ideas, innovative ideas that really would compel funding agencies to support the research project. So you think about it, the intersection between these 4 pillars would create the perfect or the strong research idea. For example, this is a research question that we got funded for the revised clinical trial. I'm not going to read the question, but your research question has to be absolutely clear. For instance, in clinical trials, you need to specify the population, the intervention, the comparator, and all the outcomes that you're looking at. But you even should take it another step. If you want to develop a competitive application, you probably want to develop a research program. So this is what we did. We did in the revised research program that involved a narrative review, multiple meta-analyses, large cohort studies, surveys, even a couple of pilot RCTs from Canada and Australia, followed by the revised international study with multiple economic evaluation, hopefully make it to the clinical practice guidelines. This shows the funding agencies that you are serious about the project. You did cover all the aspects. It's not just a single component. So and we'll go quickly through the anatomy of grant proposals. The grant proposal, again, you should follow the guidelines proposed by the funding agency, but in general, it starts with a proposal summary. You have to have an executive summary, a background that includes your review of the literature, clear goals and objectives, methodology, any ethical consideration, what's your evaluation plan, including evaluating the outcomes of the study, and sustainability and proving sustainability of the project and any need for future funding. Some granting agencies require knowledge translation section, but not all of them. And almost all of them require a detailed budget. And obviously, you may have room for appendices if you want to have supporting documents as well. So this is in a general sense what should be included in a grant proposal. Now, to write the winning proposal, it's kind of a different strategy. Not everybody can write a competitive proposal. But it starts with an absolutely strong executive summary. And I captured the executive summary from the revised research program that is very concise. And once you read it, you realize that all the important components are covered, and it's very clear, and it highlights the objectives clearly, and it's the window for reviewers. Remember, you're dealing with the reviewers. Even if you're convinced that your idea is brilliant, if the reviewers are not convinced, then you'll not get funded. You have to have clear and measurable objectives of your research program, and these probably should be in the SMART objectives. They have to be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Objectives must align with the funder's mission. This is absolutely crucial. You have to include a detailed methodology, and I'll have to pick up the pace because the presentation time is short. But you clearly outline your research plan, include timelines, milestones, and also you have to specify the responsibilities and roles of all research team members, all part of your methodology. Different granting agencies include different sections. You also have to be very careful with budget. The budget has to be realistic, detailed. Have to break it down into clear categories. Most of granting agencies will give you some guidance, and you can use their template. And you have to justify their expenses. For example, this is a screenshot from one of the grant proposals, and you can see the details of the budget items required for personnel, for equipment, materials and supply, etc., for year 1, year 2, and the total budget. But that's not enough. We also included a detailed explanation and justification for each of those components, including compensation for personnel, for medication costs, database, etc. So these are absolutely crucial. And if you don't know how to do it, please collaborate with someone who knows, because it's an important piece of your grant proposal. You also have to have a clear and realistic timeline, include the Gantt chart with all the steps. They have to be realistic and clear, because you could include the beautiful Gantt chart, but the timelines are not realistic, and then you will not get funding. So if you want to complete a multi-center international clinical trial that enrolls 2,000 patients in 1 year, you're probably not going to get funded. But also it's important to revise and refine your project. I think one of the challenges for us as non-native English speakers is writing skills. And now This is why you need to collaborate with colleagues who have experience in writing or get some help when it comes to writing, because the last thing you want to do is submit a poorly written proposal that takes away the beauty of the research idea. Now, we want to cover a few pitfalls that people commonly fall in when they write their grant. I think the most important is the lack of focus. We tend to think that more information and extensive details are helpful, but honestly, if you become too broad or too vague, you'll be in trouble. If you include unnecessary details and a lot of details, you cause cognitive overload for reviewers. If you use complex language, you run the risk of reviewers not understanding your idea. And I noticed also people they love to use technical jargon and difficult terminology, which could backfire. So these are very important tips, and they are one of the most common causes of rejection for grants. The second is poorly defined objectives. Objectives that they are unclear or unrealistic, and again stress on not aligned with the funding priorities. They will probably result in poor outcomes for your research proposal. Again, if you're unable to justify your research purpose, and many people have a great idea, but they are unable to justify why they should be funded. And that's also a common mistake that people fall into when they prepare their research grant. Mismatch between the proposal and the funder priority. And I keep repeating this because it happened recently, also in recent submissions, where people really submit proposals that do not align, to make sure that your proposal is aligned with the funding agency priorities. Poor budget planning. Again, unrealistic budgets. Most of the time it's too high, rarely it's too low. So people ask for too much money. Lack of explanation, as I showed you, or detail. But also leaving out some key expenses. So make sure you cover all the aspects of your research proposal in your budget. As I mentioned at the beginning, lack of clarity when you present a document, whether you poorly structure the proposal and you don't follow the approved format, then this results in rejection most of the time. Reviewers often reject proposals that lack clarity or precision. So please be clear as much as you can when you write your research proposal. Believe it or not, people sometimes ignore the submission guidelines. They go over their word count, they use different formatting, they use different file types. Again, these are all reasons for you not to pass the review process. Some, they miss the deadlines, or they submit incomplete documents. So make sure you have enough time to do all of that. And also, before I conclude, I want to give you a few tips that hopefully will push you for success. I cannot emphasize on starting early, the importance of starting early. It is crucial to think about your ideas, know when the seasons for funding start, and be ready to apply. Most of the time, we have very limited window to write and submit your proposals. Always include a comprehensive review of the literature in your proposal. Always. You have to highlight what we already know, identify gaps in knowledge that you want to cover with research proposals, and maybe show that your idea is novel and never been tested before or was poorly tested. I would think if I was a reviewer and I receive an application without a review of the literature, it will not get funded. More importantly, you have to learn from rejections. It's not uncommon that people get rejected multiple times, but make sure that you go through the reviewer's comments and you address those comments and learn and how to improve your project for future submissions. For example, this is the project for Revise. Believe it or not, although we eventually got funded by $4 million in Canada and in Australia and even in Saudi Arabia, huge funding from multinational. We got rejected the first time when we submitted the CIHR, but in subsequent submission, we included all the reviewers' comments at the front of the proposal, and we addressed all of them. And this, I think, gave us a clear strength that we've addressed the concerns and improved our proposal. You also need to build a strong research team. So this was the organizational structure for our research team that include multiple committees internationally, global leaders in clinical trials, data monitoring committee, adjudication committee, and also liaising with different funding agencies. Leverage networking, collaboration, and build your credibility. Build relationships with funders. The more they know you, they know that your track record and that you are somebody who delivered. Collaborate with institutions and partners that enhance your proposal impact. So people who have strong research track record, and also build your credibility. Remember, when you write proposals, weak proposals all the time, then people will say, the next proposal is likely going to be weak. But if you spend the effort and time to build your credibility by proving your track record, learning from your mistakes, this will give you future credibility and allow you to be very competitive in research grant funding. You also need to demonstrate feasibility, not only with your realistic timelines and budgeting and all that, and by including highly skilled research professionals, but also you may need to include feasibility studies. For instance, for the revised program, we conducted a full pilot study and 90 plus patients before we submitted for the final CHR grant. It took us a year or so to finish this proposal. Finally, ask for stakeholder support. Support letters from prominent professional academic societies, scientific groups, even in-kind donations to cover some of the costs. You could involve public members to give more legitimacy to your proposal. And some agencies require regulatory approvals to be submitted, and some require even IRB approval. If you are lucky and you get funded, remember that there is a lot of work that happens for grant award. You require a lot of reporting, documentation, regulatory approval, strong team that follows the accounting and make sure that the budgeting is on track, and strong filing, archiving, record keeping. You have to meet all the deadlines because there will be a lot of deadlines for reporting post-grant, and sometimes you may require extensions. So be prepared for that. Unfortunately, I don't have more time to share with you any extra ideas. So I'm hoping by this 20 minutes review that you've now learned a few things, that you have to identify funding agencies that support the research idea. You have to align your objectives with those of the funders. Remember that you are selling your idea to them. Create a winning team. Whenever possible, create a research program rather than creating a single research idea. Focus on clarity and following the guideline. Be realistic and show feasibility always if you need to conduct a feasibility study before it will enhance your chances of being accepted. And don't forget to learn from your mistakes. And if you're interested in developing your skills, there are multiple workshops that are available either online or at academic institutions that you can take. But hopefully you learned a few principles about grant writing. If you have any concerns or questions or follow-up to my lecture, please feel free to reach out to me on my contact. And thank you very much.